This episode of the Stockbury Dark is brought to you by Shop Shogun. Shop Shogun is your one-stop shop for the latest and greatest in punk, hardcore, and heavy metal merchandise. Officially licensed web stores from bands such as 100 Demons, Integrity, Disembodied, Madball, Agnostic Front, and many more. The Stockbury Dark, along with Shop Shogun, are offering a special code to discount your next order when you use it on their website. Use the promo code SDPODCAST to save 10% from your next order from Shop Shogun. Again, the code is SDPODCAST. Their website is shopshogun.com. Also, check out their page, Shop Shogun, on Facebook and at Shop Shogun Merch on Instagram.
This is Klaus from the Stockbury Dark. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you who's listening, and also thank all of you who's sharing and rating the Stockbury Dark. We touch on subjects that can be hard to express. Sometimes we touch on experiences that are painful to talk about. Hauntings, the occult, the paranormal, and darkness in different shapes. Me and Pete would therefore like to thank all our guests, friends, past and present, for being a part of this. We didn't know what to expect, but the response has been nothing short of fantastic. In all this darkness, you make us glow. Thank you. You can find us at thestockburydark.com, on Podcaster, and on iTunes. For interaction, visit the official Stockbury Dark on Instagram and the Stockbury Dark on Facebook. If you want to get in touch with us, you will reach us at thestockburydark@gmail.com. Please continue to rate us and share our episodes. What we do is for you. Welcome to the Stockbury Dark.
Hello, welcome to the Stockbury Dark. My name is Peter Morsey.
I'm Klaus.
And today we're talking with Cam Lindsey from the band The Stance. And we are going to be discussing the Bridgewater Triangle, which is a pretty mysterious place in Massachusetts. From what Cam's been telling us, he has some stories through his whole life that he's experienced in that area. This is a wild swath of land. They say it's about a 200 square mile triangle, that there's been sightings of everything from ghosts to UFOs and Bigfoot and giant snakes and Thunderbirds and a lot of other mysterious creatures and paranormal type of activity. So we're kind of going to sit back and let Cam do some talking and get some good stories out of him, hopefully, here today. So what's up, Cam? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Apologize for my voice, too. I didn't say that before. Sounds like I'm a 67-year-old 3-pack-a-day smoker.
It sounds so good.
Yeah,
I was
thinking perfect.
I really love that rasp,
I'll keep it around.
How old are you, Cam?
I'm 20.
20. You sound 67. It sounds
Exactly.
I hope those are filterless cigarettes you've been
yeah.
your voice with. It's really cool.
Camel filterless.
Camel with a K.
Cam's in a band called The Stance. That I like a lot. And
Actually, listen to all the tracks today. Very cool retro sound, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Artwork and everything, like down to a T. It was like, I was like, man, is this 1986 right here?
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you.
And it's also awesome to, have someone of your age who is who really loved that scene from back then and is doing a really authentic sound without, being a gimmick. It's
That's what I'm trying to avoid. Thank you.
yeah, very very cool, man. Very
Appreciate
cool
that.
tracks too. Yeah, so I don't know. We can get right into it. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and we'll just go from there.
Cool. All right. So if you don't know where the Bridgewater Triangle is, it's like third. Well, I guess it starts in Bridgewater. That's where I grew up, and it's like 30 minutes south of Boston. And the triangle runs from, it's a long list. It's Brockton, Easton, Taunton, Whitman, Middleborough, Raynham, Berkeley, Dighton, and like the ends on like the Freetown Forest.
Mm-hmm.
So
is there
it's
a lot of forest in that area?
Well, that's it goes like if you go up to like Freetown and like that's like, known for the Freetown Forest, and if you like keep following it, every little town has woods. It's a woodsy area,
Mm-hmm.
and Bridgewater, I grew up with a ton of woods, and there's more farmland when I was younger. It seems like it's kind of gone away
Mm-hmm.
and been developed into other things, but yeah, I don't know. So, like you said, it covers like 200 square miles, I believe.
Right.
And yeah, just like the South Shore. I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, we're just kind of giving an idea of what towns it stretches through and the size of it.
Oh yeah. So I grew up in like Bridgewater proper,
Mm-hmm.
right on the West Bridgewater line, and I lived in two different houses. One until I was 4, and then the other my parents built and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where anything that happened to me, I was living out of that second house.
So did you have experiences yourself in any of those like sections, like woods, or did things take place at your own home, or was it you being out just walking through the woods, or?
Surprisingly enough, like nothing happened to me directly in those woods, and I used to spend like when I was super young, I would spend a shit ton of time out there. But right on my street is where like one of these stories that I have takes place right across from my house, between two neighbors of mine growing up. And if you want me to jump into that, I'll swing right into it.
Yeah, that'll be great. We can start right up.
So this one's about the Thunderbird, notorious Thunderbird. And I don't know, should I describe?
Yeah, definitely let anyone know, because even for myself, I mean, I've read a little bit about that here and there, but if someone asked me exactly what I was talking about, I couldn't explain it in detail. So
yeah, and even like I didn't know what to call it until I saw the documentary, but I'll get to that. Mm-hmm. Thunderbird is basically like a prehistoric dinosaur-esque bird that still people claim to see today in the triangle, especially.
Wow.
Huge wingspan, like I don't know, like people have said beating red eyes and or big eyes, and just bigger than any other bird you could even like think about seeing,
Almost so like your classic pterodactyl from prehistoric times. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and it's supposed to make like man-sounding noises.
Yeah, like man-sounding screeching, and apparently.
Cam, could you make some of those noises for us right now?
Yeah, of course. I was expecting you to ask. I'm a screech one for you or what?
At the end of the program, we're definitely going to do some impersonations.
All right. I got it down to a T. And like, if you watch the Bridgewater Triangle documentary, there's stories about other people experiencing these things. Even, I think, police officers, if I remember. correctly. Like someone was talking about it landing on his car and shaking it and shit.
That's wild.
Yeah, I know upstate and in New England, but also out in the Midwest, police reports or people calling in about Thunderbirds has actually led to big police work and law enforcement looking into it very, very seriously, because it's been connected to people feeling that they're in great danger, and serious people.
And is it the same people seeing it?
No, just reports from all over. And I mean that's throughout the last, I don't know, the last 100 years.
Yeah.
When they have records on it still.
And that's what's bizarre to me. All this shit's been documented way before the internet and shit, before it even had a name. I think it was only named Bridgewater Triangle in the 80s or something.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly new term for it, over the years, I've always heard about that area, even in the 80s and maybe before that, like reading books that would reference that area as, as a mysterious place. But in the last, 10 years, that's when I started hearing that term, Bridgewater Triangle. And I'm sure it was dubbed that before then. But it's definitely gained in popularity over the last few years where, there's these little mini documentaries on YouTube where you hear snippets about it on television shows dealing with topics such as that. And, it's just a really, the stories are wild because that kind of encapsulates every type of phenomenon, that exists all in that area. It's not just like one sighting of a certain thing, like the Jersey Devil or the Mothman or alien abductions. It's like everything wild that you can imagine in that area.
And this
area.
This is also where I think we should mention the swamp.
The Hockomock Swamp.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the swamp?
Hockomock Swamp.
Hockomock, yep.
Which they say means either like the Devil's Swamp or place where spirits dwell.
Yeah, the spirits reside, something like that.
Yeah, and it's like an Algonquin word.
And the swamp was, for I think a long period of time, King Philip's base camp during the wars up there. At least 2 of the wars, I think.
Yeah, there's like the whole King Philip's War, Metacoms War or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was like a hot spot in base form or some shit like that.
Yeah, basically because of the swamp being so hard to get into, they used it basically as base camp. But unfortunately, this is also the place. Geographically, it's also where, 60 or 80% of the tribe died out, partly because of the wars, but also disease, I think.
Yeah, and I think they were invaded. I'm not sure about this, and that the towns were wiped out, and children and women were slaughtered who didn't even have part of the war, before he was beheaded,
Yeah.
Yeah, then he was beheaded.
The swamp in itself, when you think of a swamp, you can't imagine the vast size of this. As I was reading about the swamp, they said it's close to 17,000 acres, which is a huge piece of land. And they used it as their fortress. So it's like a vast area.
Yeah.
It's the biggest freshwater swamp in the state. In the Union, I don't know, but that should still say a lot. Even though the state isn't super big, it is the biggest freshwater one.
Yeah.
So is this where the majority of sightings are seen in that area?
Like I said, I'm not I'm not one of the guys out there in the fucking ghillie suits, trying to sneak up on a Bigfoot. But
yeah,
most of the shit I've read is it seems like it's generated or like attracted to that area. Most people are like, most sightings are around that. But the first story I'm going to tell you about happened basically in my backyard. The Thunderbirds story. Should I just go into that one?
Yeah.
All right. So first things first, I didn't even know the term Bridgewater Triangle. I didn't know anything about that. No one did back then. We were 11 or 12 years old. And me and my neighbor, Brendan, were at my parents' house. And we were friends with the neighbors across the street. And they were the Reagans, Matt and Connor. And Matt was with his friend Cade. And he gave us a call over at my parents' house. And asked if Brendan and I wanted to come over and meet up he had a basketball court in his backyard, not a half court thing. And he asked if he wanted to go over there and meet up with him. So me and Brendan, 10 minutes goes by. We walk over there, which is just across the cul-de-sac. And Matt and Cade are not in the backyard anymore, where they said they'd be. Mm-hmm. So we start looking around and, we're like, all right, that's kind of fucking weird. Whatever, they just called us and we weren't long. So we look up on Matt's porch and you could see through the glass slider. You could see like something's happening. We figured that he's just getting chewed out by his mother. So we walk up and we're like, oh, what the fuck's going on? And then we look at Matt and Cade, and these are like two, tough kids who don't want to be seen freaking out, crying, or making up anything, Mm-hmm. And, they're freaking out, crying to their fucking mother. And I'm like, me and Brendan said, what's going on? And they're like, we saw something. It was like a dinosaur bird. It was like up in the trees, and they're freaking out. So anyway, without doing that dumb voice anymore, they claimed that they saw this giant prehistoric bird. The basketball rolled into the woods, and this bird was like up overhead, and they heard it before they saw it. I heard some like you said earlier, like this man like screech, and Matt looked up and called over to his buddy Cade, and they watched this thing and heard the wings before they saw it as well. And they said the wing, I talked to these guys recently for the first time in years, just to get the story straight before I told it again. And they said the wing sound was like the most powerful. It was like straight out of a movie, and they don't even know how to describe it. So they see this Thunderbird now. They see it, They heard it. They heard it screech. They heard the wings. Now they see it, and its wingspan is way bigger than anything they've ever seen. They've never seen anything like it besides, like Jurassic Park or some shit. So they freak out. They're telling us about it. Me and Brendan think it's bullshit, but we do think it's weird that they're freaking out about it. And they, go on explaining it. They said big eyes on it, huge wingspan, did the screech noise, and the wings were loud as hell. So apparently it went up into the tree, stayed there, and then took off. And behind that backyard, it was all undeveloped farmland. It was like overgrown as shit. Now that's where the high school is, the Bridgewater Raynham High School. Mm-hmm. But back then it was still like, maybe they were like leveling it to put the high school there, but it wasn't built yet. So they tell us this. We walk away thinking, okay, that was stupid. And we don't believe them, think they're bullshitting. So then however many years goes by, 9, 10 years, and I go to the Bridgewater Triangle documentary viewing. And, I'm watching it, thinking it's cool. And then they bring up this thing called the Thunderbird. This is the second time of me hearing about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
First being years and years ago as a kid in my own neighborhood. So once I hear about it again, my jaw dropped because I thought those kids were bullshitting for so many years, and I still remembered it clearly because I have a weird ass memory and remember stupid shit. And as soon as I heard that, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my jaw was just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
So as soon as I finished watching that, I reached out to those guys, and I was like, "You remember that story you told me as kids?" And like, yeah, I couldn't forget that. And I was like, I'm sorry that I said you were lying, you know?
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it's a wild thing to hear. You know, when you're a kid, you hear stories of like maybe an escaped killer on the loose, or a weird ghost story, or maybe even like a Bigfoot story you can relate to. But to hear like there's like a prehistoric creature flapping its wings around in these woods and in these lands, to hear that, the first thing you're going to obviously think of is no way.
Yeah, no fucking way. And especially as 11 and 12 years old, people, you know, they lie.
Kids make up things. Exactly. And then to hear that years later,
it freaked me out. And the thing was, it was insane, and it made sense because, like I said, they were like, you know, tough, like kids you wouldn't want to be caught by your friends crying or freaking out, especially about something that's not even shit you can make up. You know, it's too weird to make up something about a prehistoric bird when you're getting your basketball out of the woods.
Who would think of that, you know?
Not an 11-year-old mind.
Yeah.
And I probably butchered the hell out of that story, but I think I got my point across.
Yeah, definitely.
I just recently reached out to them the last 2 or 3 days, like I said, to get the story straight. And I asked the person I was with when I walked over to that house with, and he says he has no memory of it.
Really?
But the other 2 kids who actually saw it, they had the same exact story. I asked them separately, and it was the same exact as when they told me the first time.
Yeah, so when you spoke to them recently, they still went into detail about the same story again?
Yeah, same story, like, you know, worded better than before, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
I wonder how often they thought about that, you know, their whole life.
Yeah, I mean, that seems something like it would follow you into your dreams or some shit.
Definitely.
But they still remembered it. They still stand by it. At this point in my life, I believe them, but back then I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Any other stories like that, you know, of people who've encountered the same thing?
I've never heard anything else besides the Thunderbird, besides those 2, Matt and Cade, and watching the documentary and reading shit about it online.
Yeah.
And now that it's out online, I'm worried if somebody's gonna say they've seen it if they haven't, you know.
Right. But I wonder if there's any like recent sightings of that.
I think there's a website that has like all this listings of sightings and shit on there.
Like every time there's something reported, they'll list it on there.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still don't know what to think of it, just because it's, you know, nothing I've ever heard about before. And like I said, that was right across from my parents' house. But if I saw it, it would have been a totally different thing, you know. I would have been, you know, I don't know, shaking. shaking like a dog shitting a knife. That's all I got for the Thunderbird.
Mm-hmm. So, any of like your family always from that area?
My father grew up in Hanover, and my mother grew up in Easton, and Easton is in there, and I think there's plenty of stories attached to Easton with the Bridgewater Triangle.
Did any like family members ever have anything, stories growing up that you recall?
Yeah, I have 2 stories from my mother, and
Does she seem like a believer in it all, or does she brush it off as like?
That's the thing. Like, I don't think she would have been if she didn't have these two experiences. And the thing with my dad is he? I mean, me. I'm even like I'm a skeptic. I have to see it to believe it type shit. Right. But like some of this, like that story I just told you, that I don't know what else to do but believe it, just because it's too far fetched. I don't know. But I think my father's probably had the weirdest shit happen to him. But he just, he's just a classic old school type of guy. Doesn't want to tell me that he's sick, or doesn't want to tell me he's hurt, nothing like that. So he's not going to tell me any shit that I'm going to feed into,
Yeah.
But I could tell you my mother's stories.
I love that with people, though. The people that are like the most straight-laced and, would never expect to hear stories like that. And when they do tell you things like that, those are the ones you believe,
Yeah, exactly. And
the ones that don't want to tell you what happened because they don't ever want to sound like a loon or a crazy person.
Yeah, exactly.
And when they finally get it out, those are the stories you're blown away by, because like if this guy's telling you, there's got to be truth to it.
Yeah. And it's funny because he has like the most insane stories, but the reason he doesn't like telling them is because people are like, holy shit, really?
Yeah, he doesn't want that attention.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, fuck off. But I bet maybe someday he'll tell me. But my mom grew up in Easton, like I said, and she had lived in this old ass New England colonial style like stone foundation house.
Mm-hmm.
It was built in 1870, and her parents bought it in 1961. So, I'm trying to think, 61. So that's like a couple years before she was born. And there's like one story that she told me, and she told me so long ago, and I've always remembered it just because it's freaky as hell. It's something you think about if, you're alone in an abandoned building or some shit. It's like one of those thoughts that just like, holy shit, imagine that happening to me or something. Yeah, she told me this years and years ago, and I recently brought it up to her again just to, so I wasn't telling you something that was all butchered. But I asked her about the story, and she told me it again. So she was 8 or 9 years old in this home that she grew up in, and her mother and her were downstairs, and they were like just finished, eating lunch or dinner or something, and her mom told her to go make her bed. So I'm assuming maybe it was breakfast or lunch. Mm-hmm. And her mother goes, oh, you should go upstairs and make your bed. And she had to go upstairs to do that. So she goes upstairs, and she's making her bed just like she normally would. And, she was about to like pull the last corner on the bed, like the comforter or whatever. And as she steps back to pull it, she feels her foot like land on another person's foot. Uh-huh. And as she leans back a little more to like catch herself, right in her ear, a man's voice just goes, ouch, like right in her ear. And she like looked around thinking it was her brother or father, or she had two brothers, thinking it was one of them. She looks around, obviously there's no one there. So I'm guessing she jumped down that flight of stairs pretty quick. Yeah, she said she was scared shit and ran downstairs, told her mother, and I don't know how they really reacted.
Wow.
And
just the thought of that just gave me goosebumps, just being alone as a kid, that's
it's your worst nightmare as a kid.
Yeah,
especially whisper in the ear. I hate that.
Yeah.
And I asked her if she like thought it was, if there was any like negative presence with it or anything that she could have felt. And she said no, but since she was still so young, it was just made her like really uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think anyone would be uneasy from that.
Yeah. Did she ever tell you any other instances in that house?
Yeah, the same house. When she was like 13 years old, her and her brother came home. Well, she had 2 brothers and a sister, and on this day after school, only her and one brother came home. Like the other siblings must have went to a friend's house or something. Who cares? So they like walk in the door, and her brother said, "Hey, you want to go like play in the backyard?" And she says, "Yeah, and let me switch into, like my play shoes or whatever." So she watches her brother walk out the back door. And then as she's like tying up her shoes to go outside, she sees someone run right past her. Thinking it's her brother, she, finished tying her shoe and like ran up and went to the door, and it's the opposite door he went into to go outside. Mm-hmm. And she walks up to the door and doesn't see him. And she looks back and sees that he's in the backyard still. So who ran through the house, mm-hmm. And the door was, shut, and he was back where she left him and was going to meet up with him. And she again ran out really fast and asked him if it was him who ran through the house. And he was beyond confused what she was talking about. Huh. And that was only 3 or 4 years after.
Uh-huh.
And then she told me about this other instance where she was in the house and it was only her in there alone, and nothing. She didn't see anything. She didn't hear anything. She just had this very uneasy feeling in the house. And, maybe it was like the feeling like someone's watching you, or, something just didn't feel right. She didn't feel like she was like welcome there or something. Mm-hmm. So she went outside it was like a snowstorm or something, and just stood there for hours until her mother got home. She said there was nothing that caused it more than like maybe an instinctual feeling.
Right. Well, I mean, especially after having things like that happen to her in the house on a couple different occasions, you could see how someone could feel like that and feel the need to not be in there. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be.
Yeah, I know that feeling too well. That's every day in the house that I grew up in.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the second episode that you.
And I mean, it can sound super hippish to talk about that feeling, but like if you've had that feeling, that's a strong fucking feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
to feel a presence
unexplainable. Yeah,
like almost hostile, but you can't put your finger on it.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's very intense.
I've had almost the same exact thing a couple times where I just had someone super heavy by myself, and I just had to be outside of the house. Like I couldn't even stay in there. You turn on every light and you kind of wait there until you see another human being.
Yeah.
To help you feel a little bit more at ease, because being alone, your mind can wander well, and when you have feelings like that, there's nothing that's going to settle it. Walking in, even as an adult, I can convince myself there's a creature in my basement as I go down there late at night, and I'm picking up my kids' toys in the playroom, and I'm putting things away, and I start turning off lights one by one, and once that darkness starts creeping in behind me,
booking up those stairs.
Yeah, you're literally running up the steps. As a full-grown man who in real life has not one fear, but that fear of the dark or something like that is totally different. I put myself in those situations all the time where I just create these like scenarios where I just need to flee because something's there waiting or watching.
I haven't felt it in so long, but I remember just being a kid in like a empty house when you're 9 or 10 years old, when no one else is there, and you're upstairs, and then you think, oh fuck, imagine someone was there. Imagine there's a ghost in my house, and then you basically
broad daylight.
Yeah, you jump out that fucking window anywhere else but there.
But you also live in the city now, and you grew up in a place where they claim that the natives actually cursed the land before leaving and semi dying out. That they cursed basically cursed the soil in the Bridgewater area.
Oh yeah. Um, that goes back to like the King Philip's War thing again.
Yeah.
They say once, because what was it, like 5% of the population back there was affected by that war or something. I don't know if that
something like that.
Something, and apparently that is when shit started getting weird after the war ended and King Philip was beheaded and his head was put on a like stick and shown for however many years. Do you know that? The correct amount of years?
20 years or something. Basically
20 years.
Yeah, so it was only skull left.
Yeah, that's fucked. Like just shown that all the time. And apparently that's when, things started happening and different instances started getting recorded, whether it was paranormal or there's a super early UFO sighting too. I don't know if you know about that.
What years were that?
I want to look it up. It's because there's gonna be a ton of people pissed off about me butchering this info because they love it, in their ghillie suits.
Yeah, that's a hot topic. Did you yourself, or do you know anyone that found arrowheads out there?
Yeah, I think that's like a super common thing to find. And I mean, if you're like a woods kid, grow up in the woods and you're digging around all those property marking rocks, those like in the woods, it's basically their property lines back then.
Yeah.
You could find anything from like arrowheads, the like wicked old bottles and cans or metal shit like that.
Revolutionary War.
Yeah. So depends on but you can find arrowheads really anywhere that there was a tribe around.
It's always so crazy to me, the link between like when seeing things like whenever there's reports of like Bigfoots or creatures in the woods, and soon after, a lot of times there's reports of UFOs in the area as well. There's some people who theorize that whoever's operating these UFOs are actually, bringing these creatures in and letting them kind of loose for other people to see and getting reactions from them.
What? I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I used to immerse myself in a lot of like UFOs and like stories like the books like that, ancient alien stuff. And this is back in the 80s, when I was like in high school and started reading books like Chariots of the Gods and the 12th Planet and everything like that. And, I would go to these bookstores and find magazines and like a lot of these bizarre UFO conspiracy books that went way off into other worlds. And
were they talking about the triangle at all, or is this just generally?
I don't recall if anything in the triangle, but just generally speaking, like they would always summarize that after Bigfoot sightings, there'd always be UFO sightings. A lot of people are trying to link the UFO sightings together with like creature sightings and think of these people either from other planets or interdimensional beings were dropping off creatures like Bigfoot and kind of almost as an experiment to see people's reactions to them, which is
that's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean it's all bizarre one way or another when
we're
go to that next level.
Talking about a fucking giant bird, and I'm calling that bizarre.
Yeah.
Can I ask you your stance on Bigfoots? Like, what do you think?
I mean, I'm not like an expert on that. I've done a lot of reading on different topics like this, but part of me believes there has to be something, whether it was a dying off species, that there were little enclaves of them living in areas, I don't know. It seems there's too much commonalities across the world with creatures like that, from hundreds of years ago up until recent. Where these sightings and these like descriptions from a lot of tribal people, or people in our time now. There's just so much in so many different places. It's kind of hard to disbelieve it. How it can be just one like conspiracy altogether? I don't believe it.
But do you think there's a lot of? Have you watched all these YouTube videos and like that show on Netflix or whatever?
No. I think a lot of those.
That's what kills it for me. That's what makes me think everyone's a fucking idiot.
I think a lot of kills it for me as well.
I think all of that is bullshit. But do I believe that something similar to Bigfoot existed and that has existed in our time? Absolutely. I mean, they found new species all the time.
Yeah.
And also, we know for a fact that throughout the history of humanity, we've lived side by side with other forms of human-like people, like the Neanderthals lived. I mean, side by side, but historically during the same time as other living forms that were similar to us, and then they died out.
Yeah, either by natural selection or warring, or absolutely, isolation. Yeah. But there were people the size of hobbit-sized creatures. That they're saying were the same shape and form as like these really
the Pukwudgie
type of people. Yeah, that's another one right there. You're right, and then up to like giant, 8-9 foot, like human-like, upright standing people or creatures.
It's
could
just
there be missing links that still exist? In the last 100 years? Yeah, I believe so. Are 99.9% of them hoaxes? I think so as well. Just about every one of them that's been filmed or casts have been taken of their footprints have been proven wrong,
Yeah, exactly. And those shows are so bizarre. They'll blame anything on Bigfoot. They'll find anything and say it's evidence towards Bigfoot. Like a way a tree has fallen into another tree, they say it's in like a triangle, which Bigfoot likes triangles or some shit.
Yeah,
Bigfoot likes squares.
I saw a picture online today because I was doing a little reading, and there was a tree with a rock placed in it, and they were trying to say that only a Bigfoot could have placed that rock inside of this tree.
So dumb.
I don't know about that. I feel like
anyone could do it.
Fairly large man, I would have picked that rock up and hit it myself. Where I live in Waterbury, Connecticut, which is a city, but there's some really forested areas, and I actually live on a road where there's only 3 homes, and I have miles and miles of woods behind me, and these woods connect to another swamp, not nearly the size of the one we were talking about.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember as a kid, I was like in 3rd or 4th grade in elementary school, and there was a kid 2 or 3 years older than me telling me that in that swamp, him and his father saw Bigfoot. They swore on their lives. He told me the story. They saw the creature. They ran. It was like sun was setting. It was a huge, hairy, like human-like form. And never in my life would I imagine there was like a Bigfoot in Waterbury, Connecticut, or even in the wooded areas. And I never thought about it again because, like you said, as a kid, you hear another kid telling stories like that. You're like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Or a pterodactyl flapping around.
Yeah.
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was one of those Finding Bigfoot TV shows. I don't know what it was. It could have been that one. It toured the country, and they were going to all the towns where there were Bigfoot sightings, and they ended up doing a show in Waterbury, in my city, about Bigfoot.
No way.
Yep. And of course, that brought back all the memories from this kid telling me the story of like,
oh shit,
seeing Bigfoot with his father in the swamp. And then on this actual show, they talked about that swamp. This is about 3 miles from my house. I can walk through my woods, and it was in that same area. So that just blew my mind.
They didn't talk to the kid, did they?
No. And I lost touch with this kid. I don't know if he even lives around here anymore or what. But I mean, probably 40 years later.
Fuck.
That story came up again.
So that means there was more sightings.
Yeah, there's definitely been more. And they were all in that area. Had to be a lot
for them to go out there and check it out.
Yeah, because at one point it was a very heavily wooded area, and they built a golf course and, built new developments of homes. It was a massive, massive thousands and thousands of acres of land. Now it's dwindled down to, but it's still a large strip of undeveloped land in there now. So
that's crazy.
What speaks in favor of Bigfoot in North America is the Yeti in Himalaya, which, I mean, it would suggest that it's two different populations, but maybe two forms of, what would you call it, like creatures that live in two different parts of the world, and they've just lived in different parts of the world, but during the same centuries, but are like kind of similar and similar looking.
Maybe they're in the same species or something.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. Part of me has always wanted to, like, as dumb as it sounds, buy a Bigfoot costume and hang out in these woods and just scare the living hell out of people.
Make a video and make millions off it too.
Well, that's years ago. It wasn't. It was an MTV show. I think. What the hell was it called? Like Buzz something. I don't know. And it was like a precursor to Jackass. And one of their things was they had this guy in the woods wearing a giant like Bigfoot costume, and he would come charging out at people, and it would ruin their day.
I think there's like a YouTube guy that does that too.
Yeah, I bet
there's probably 1,000.
There's probably 1,000 guys that do that. But, man, there's something about just doing that and terrifying somebody that's so funny to me. But in this day and age, you might end up getting shot.
Yeah, you probably will.
Yeah. So going back to like the Bridgewater Triangle, any other stories that you had from other people that you've heard or known?
Yeah, I'm going to save the best for last, which is my personal experience.
Oh, so you did have an experience.
Oh, yeah, I've been holding off.
I thought you said earlier that you didn't have one. I've also read, like, they threw in things like animal mutilations, cattle mutilations, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, that's in, like, the Freetown Forest. There was all that, like, occult stuff. And
Cam, that's pretty recent, too, right?
Yeah, that's not
the cattle mutilation, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's pictures, and I think there's video of all these cows lined up, dead, dragged in the woods. I think there's video of it in color, so
yeah,
it can't be. Yeah, that's insane to me. That forest is crazy. There, I only know, I've been there, but only since after the documentary came out, and I didn't know anything about it before, to be honest. But everything that documentary covered about it is just scary because it's too true. There's no question about it being fake because it's there and it happened. It's not like somebody saying they saw Bigfoot. It's somebody finding, like, I don't know, these like worship grounds and dead cattle and dead other animals, chickens with their heads cut off and shit, it's real,
Like the animal mutilation things have always been really crazy to me, because a lot of that is also related to UFO sightings too, where, I don't know the ones about Bridgewater Triangle, but a lot of like cattle mutilations and animal mutilations that I've read about over the years were very surgical, like these animals with every drop of their blood drained, with these incisions that were cauterized too perfectly, almost done as if like it was used by some sort of laser, with certain parts of their organs removed or their eyeballs removed and sections of their eyeballs removed, which would have been nearly impossible to take, like unless they had like these highly like skilled people or whoever doing it, and it just made no sense to people.
That's something they touch on in movies and stuff.
Yep. I don't know if the Bridgewater ones. What I read briefly, it said they thought it was something to do with like the occult or ritual kind of killings, sacrificing maybe. I don't know how the condition of the animals in those instances, what they were like, if it was similar to like these really surgical type things, or if it was more just like sacrificial.
It seemed like that's what they were saying it was, is like some sort of ritual. And I think there was around the same time there was like people like digging up graves or like tomb raiding and taking skulls or something.
Really? Were there? Is there cemeteries in the area?
Yeah, I mean, there's huge cemeteries in Massachusetts, and some of them are old as
when the earliest settlers.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Connecticut and Massachusetts are very similar with their history and the architecture and the way towns were developed and incorporated, and it's almost like the same state in so many different ways.
Yeah,
Connecticut alone has some of the most haunted cemeteries and woods in the world as well. There's so many crazy stories here, which hopefully one day we'll do a big show on that because there's so much here to talk about. But
Connecticut's huge too.
Yeah, I mean Connecticut's smaller than Mass, but there's so much old.
I feel like it's more open. Like land. I don't know. I might have it all wrong, but when I'm driving through Connecticut, it feels like forever.
There definitely is. There's a few larger cities, but there's like still a massive, like, it's such a heavily forested, wooded state. You can drive on certain highways for miles and not see anything except forest. I have friends that come here from Finland all the time, and they're like, I feel like I'm home. It's just green as far as you can see.
Yeah.
But there's so much like lurid history to it all too, and I feel like New England is home to some of the most hauntings, and the most like paranormal stuff. Maybe because it was some of the biggest tragedies that have happened here, with the earliest of settlers and people colonizing and the slave trade and everything else. There's just so much bad that happened here, and it just resonates for hundreds of years.
It's evil's still lingering on.
Yeah.
I'll hit you with one that happened this year. This one's, I had my girlfriend write this one down because it's kind of her thing. I saw the butt end of it, but I was driving to Lowell to play a show from New York. I was meeting the rest of the guys there because they all still live in Mass. And maybe where the fuck were we going? Because it's 2 a.m. She wrote down 2 a.m. So it could have been, or maybe I was. Oh, okay. I know what I was doing. I got in a day earlier. That's what it was, to play the show the next night. So we're driving, and it was 2 a.m. November 23rd, which is a Thursday. We were on 95 North when this happened. This is her own account, so I'm just gonna read it.
Okay.
Off of paper. She said, "At first, I thought it was a light reflection bouncing off the car window out of the corner of my eye, but there weren't any other cars around us at the moment, or signs or anything that would have given off that color. And then when she looked to her right side out her window, she saw a very bright, glowing blue light with a like bright gold, almost spark-like firework-looking trail behind it."
Wow.
As if it was like a firework going, but it was parallel with the car, like right over the tree line.
Was it keeping pace with the car?
It was keeping, like, she had enough time. Like, this is her next thing even. She goes, it was there long enough for me to say, "Holy shit," and then had me look at it, tap my shoulder, and I had caught the very last of it. It's almost like it just burnt out. And I saw maybe 2 seconds of it, and I was blown away by whatever the fuck it was, because it was cool looking too, regardless of what it was. And she was freaking out, and she drew like a picture of it like immediately after on her phone. I'll show you guys that later.
Cool. But you got to send us that picture too, because then we'll post that up on.
Yeah, with her permission, we'll post it.
It's literally drawn like on an iPhone,
like a little sketch or something.
But, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's better than I would do, but I don't even know how to explain that or think of what that was. And she saw it, and she still talks about it. And
was it like going parallel with the car?
Yeah, so it wasn't like something. It wasn't like a shooting star.
It wasn't like a meteorite that was like coming low or anything. It was like kind of parallel with the car and keeping pace.
Right over the tree line.
Yeah,
and it was It wasn't like it was going up or down. It was sideways.
Right.
And it, like a light. I don't know. It was like this blue, like bright as hell, like enough to shine through the window of my car. Wow. And I was probably on the farthest lane from that tree line too, to not in the slow lane. I was in the passing lane, and I caught the end of it, and I was like, what the hell was that? Because like she wrote exactly, it was this blue ball with I don't even know how to, like a tail attached to it, like with spark, like almost a spark-like color, not a tail, but
right.
The tail end of it was different than the main color. It was like a fireball type thing. Oh, wow. And that was, I looked that up when you were talking. The first UFO sighting around the triangle was in 1760.
Oh, wow.
That was also a fireball-esque sighting.
And it was similar to what she described and what you thought you saw?
I think they said it was like a fiery red or something, right. And it was probably going up or just resting in the sky. I didn't correlate those two until just now, but that was, November 23rd, 2018. That was not long ago, and
wow,
she's put a lot more thought into it than I have, because I saw the very end of it right before it hit the tree line, like, burnt out into it kind of, but she didn't shut up about it.
Yeah, it's not something that you see, normally. That's a pretty crazy thing to experience as well. I've seen like not low lying comets, but I've seen like shooting stars or like something that looks like not a comet, but like a meteorite. That came straight down from the sky. That was super bright, like 2 or 3 times in my life. But these were coming down on like sharp angles,
Exactly.
And then fading out, in the skyline, like, probably a couple thousand feet up in the air. Like they were very bright, would almost like illuminate for a minute. There wasn't your average like shooting star, but this, something that's like traveling parallel, and flying, on that. In that manner is it's definitely not something coming down from the sky.
And I don't have an answer for what it is. I don't have a idea of what it is. I just think it's weird,
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's 2 a.m. So Johnny Two Shoes down the street's not shooting a fireworks sideways, and it was not even by any homes, I believe. And there's no noise. That's what. Oh, she wrote that. She goes. She looked back as we both watched the end of it, expecting like a firework, like, but nothing. It just like I said, it burnt out. Yeah, there was no sound to it. It was quiet. We were the only ones on the road. She was like looking up the next day if anyone saw it or anything. Of course, no one else did.
Did it seem to like just like fizzle out or just disappear?
Kind of like it. I don't know, because it seemed like it was going good, and then all of a sudden it kind of like almost burnt out. But pretty quick, it wasn't more than 8 seconds. It could have been more than that. It was weird as hell.
Yeah, but 8 seconds is pretty long.
Yeah. It was long enough where like she said, she could look at it, process it, react, and then tell me. And she caught out of the corner of her eye before that, you know. I don't know. I don't know what the hell that was.
What's crazy is I just went on YouTube and I typed in Bridgewater Triangle UFO, and the first thing that came up is like a bluish sphere flying through the sky. It's like a bluish ball.
When's that video from?
Bridgewater Triangle Fireball UFO Phenomena, Abington, Mass. What's the date on it? It's not actually giving a date for some. Let's see. Oh, here we go. November 22nd, 2013.
Whoa, that's a day.
Yeah, so it's like 4 years before that sighting, the same month. What was the day? The 23rd for her?
23rd, yeah.
That's pretty crazy, right?
I hate that, yeah.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, that's freaky shit. And I want 23rd is when she had so it could have been, I don't know. That's fucking weird. That freaked me out.
Yeah.
Because it could have been the 22nd and she drew it later that night. Exactly. I don't fucking know. I hate that. Wow. Yeah. Fuck that, huh?
Yeah, that's Jesus. Like the first thing that came up on YouTube. You could check that out after, you know, and see if it's something, show her maybe, and see if it's something similar. But this is like a blue sphere going through the sky, and then it just fades out.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, she's probably up to the wall with a cup to her ear anyway, so she's probably looking it up right now.
So it's like four years to the day.
You know? That's weird. Yeah, that's something weird. Got nothing more to say about that. Holy shit. That one came out of left field.
It's like a life of coincidence. You know, you can just look up something and just have it relate.
Yeah,
so. Where's Abington in comparison to where that sighting was?
I think Abington is off of Route 18. If I'm thinking, I can't think of. I don't know. I'm fucking weirded out by that still. I gotta look at where Abington is in correlation to everything else.
Yeah, but after this, I'm definitely gonna go back and check on other sightings and other dates and see like what time frame they took place in. It could be either a cool coincidence or something that's like
that
yearly occurrence. Weird. You know,
I was right. It's Abington. You know, you could follow Brockton. You could go from Bridgewater to East Bridgewater to Abington, all on the same Route 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there might be stories of Route 18 as well. But I don't know.
Okay. Then you got a ton of stories about Brockton, but definitely not ghosts.
Yeah.
Zombies.
Yeah, exactly. I worked in Brockton for a bit. In Madhouse.
We always said Brockton was like the sister city to Waterbury, and all my friends that live there, you know, whenever they come to Waterbury, they felt right at home.
Oh, man.
Just, you know, very, very similar vibe. Just some really crazy happenings, you know.
Brockton's nuts.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Did you ever notice in that movie Coneheads, when they get new licenses, their license says they're from Brockton?
Oh, no, I've never heard of that.
You know Coneheads, though, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Saturday Night Live skit, and then they made the movie with Dan Aykroyd, right? And forget who else.
Yeah, next time, pause it on those IDs and check it out. I think the guy even says it, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty funny. I never knew that. That's Brockton's claim to fame.
Yeah. It is. All right, where are we at? Let me see. I got my little notes here like a nerd.
That's good. I'm glad you came prepared, man. Very good.
Let's see. I got nothing about Bigfoot. I wish I did.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess we're on to my story.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I didn't write anything down for this because it's from the head. So weirdly enough, This is November 20th, 2013.
Get out of here.
Which is 2 days. That's all I wrote down I wrote down November 20th, 2013, 6:30-ish, and where I was. So, that's freaking me out too.
Yeah, I wonder what's up with November and all these strange occurrences.
That's 2 days before what you just told me about.
Yeah.
Fuck. So, I was with my friend Gavin, and we just went and got food or something. And we were in Bridgewater Center, which is like a little roundabout, and the little shops and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And we're right around Bridgewater Center going towards, we're on Route 18, which is Broad Street, I think, right there. And I forget which way that would be. I think it would be going south. And we come to like the red light, and straight out the front of his windshield, I catch this bright ass light. That's like the first thing to catch my eye. And then I see another one. And then I see another one. And it's not like, you're used to seeing planes in the sky, and you'll see them flashing their lights, and they're not with any other light besides one or two other, and it's usually pretty close, So I see one light, and then the other, and then the other, kind of in like a sequence. And then I noticed it's not just only lights right there that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. There's a whole mass behind those lights. There's a shape to those lights.
Really?
So I can't even open my mouth at this point. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the fuck am I seeing? And I'm confused, like right off the bat, I'm confused of what I'm seeing. And then I look, and like my eyes adjust because it's November, so it's dark already, 6:30. And I finally, said, Gavin, do you see that? You see that? And he looks, and he's like, oh my, he's on the same level as weirded out by me. And we're looking at this thing, and we're just like stopped there in the middle of the street looking at this. And it's as if somebody was holding like a cutout piece of cardboard that, I don't know how to describe it. There's two layers of darkness. There was the sky, and then there was the mass of this like ship, whatever what it was,
Wow.
And it was massive, and there was these lights that would, blink and kind of change rotation under it, and I was just moving my hands like an idiot explaining that, but you can't see it. They're blinking, and they would change their, the way they were, or the way they were sitting, and it's going forward, and it's very, very low. It's huge, and I don't even know if I'm telling this story good right now, but the thing's huge, and we both see this thing very clearly. There's no sound to it, and I'm looking around to see if anyone else is tweaking about it like we are, No one is. So we keep going down Route 18, then we pull off into the school parking lot, which is empty at this time. And it's the intermediate school. It used to be the middle school, and then they started building a ton of schools for no reason. So we pull into the intermediate school, and we pull into the parking lot, and we get out of the car, and this is the most perfect place to view this thing. And it's not moving anymore. It's right in front of us over these football fields and baseball fields. That's right there. It's called Legion Field behind the school, and it's right over there. And if you keep looking across the street, there's a whole nother what's it called? There's a road parallel to us, of the one we just got off. So there's more traffic over there. So I'm expecting to see people like pulling over to look at this thing with us, And me and him are the only ones there. We're watching it, and the lights are doing that. They're flickering, and now they're doing it a little. They're more. It's different. I don't know how to explain it. We're watching this thing, and now instead of it being so like perfectly executed, those light changes, it was more random as it just floated up rather than continued to go straight. It's floating up and it's getting higher, and the lights are doing crazy stuff and kind of changing from a shape to a line. This is like under the thing, and we watch this thing, and we watch this thing, and we watch this thing float until we can't see it anymore. And we weren't even talking at that point. And at that point in my life, if I had a phone, it was a flip phone, and couldn't film it myself or take a picture of it myself.
So for how long do you think it was going on?
This went on for minutes.
Yeah.
We followed it from the center of town, I'd probably say for a half mile, until we could pull off to somewhere that wasn't a house. And that was the school parking lot. And we pulled off in there and watched this thing go from going straight with us, almost like we were following it, to stopping above these fields. And we watch the lights change, like I said, and it floats up until it's gone. And we, once it's gone, we look at each other like, what the fuck, and we start talking, and we have no explanation for it. And obviously, me saying it's a UFO, it's not me saying, oh, it's an alien, I'm not saying that. And right. I've never experienced anything like that in my whole life. I don't know what to think of it. And he's, just as blown away by it as I am. And on the way home, his mind kind of like changes, because I think was feeling like crazy.
Just trying to rationalize.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, maybe." And I was like, we just watched this thing for minutes. Like, don't maybe. Like, we saw there was very much a like a mass to this. It wasn't just lights; it was a ship.
So behind the lights, you saw an actual shape, right?
Yeah, an actual shape. And it's not like the classic disc shape, and it's not that triangle, and it wasn't the like baseball home plate. It was like an elongated baseball home plate almost, like more of a rectangle with a point.
Right.
It was like, and like I said, it was like two different shades. Like the color of that was either some wicked dark shade of blue or the darkest black you can have, because against the dark night sky, it was like the darkest it could be.
Were all the lights the same color?
All the same color.
Yeah. Were there other people out watching it when you guys were stopped watching it?
No one else was in the parking lot. No one else was pulling over. I didn't see anyone else. And I'll get to that too. So whatever, he drives me home, and I'm kind of pissed off because he's trying to
rationalize.
Yeah, and it pissed me off because he was the one guy I had to be like, oh yeah, like me and Gavin saw this. Now I'm just a fucking lunatic. So I run inside, and I'm freaking the fuck out. And I'm calling everyone. I'm texting everyone, like posting about it on Facebook and shit. And I called like my dad, and he's like, I'm not home. Obviously, I call obviously he's not home because I was there. I call my sisters. They don't see shit. They think I'm nuts. I called my mother at the time, and we weren't talking. I even called her and freaked her the fuck out, talking nonsense about some shit in the sky. She didn't see anything. I called all the surrounding police departments and fire departments saying, has anyone, called about anything in the sky tonight? No. And I'd, hang up, and I was going nuts. I couldn't believe that no one else had seen this thing. And the one other guy that watched it with me is trying to act like he didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, time goes on and no one else saw it. And, months go by. Well, of course, I make my tinfoil hat, and start pacing around my room. No, I'm just fucking with you. Months go by, and it's in the back of my head, but I'm not even telling anyone about it anymore. Because if no one else saw it, I just seem like an insane person. So whatever, one day I get a text from my mother, and it was a link. And somebody posted on like the Bridgewater residence page, Facebook page,
mm-hmm.
a link of the exact thing I witnessed, same exact day, same exact time, from the other street directly across from me.
Mm-hmm. Insane.
And that's,
wow.
Yeah. And I remember it was the biggest weight off my shoulders, because I was like, I'm not the only fucking one who saw this. And now it has 60,000 views on it. When she found it, it was like 100 views, if that. And
so as you're telling this story, I went into Google, I typed in November 20th, 2013 UFO sighting Massachusetts, in that video. So I've been watching this video for the last 5 minutes.
Oh shit!
While you've been telling me this story, because I didn't want to interrupt you. And it's exactly as you described. There's people trying to debunk it, saying those are lanterns in the sky, and this and that, and it's a pretty cool video. The way the lights are, how you describe how they're constantly moving and changing, and
now that's like under it. There's still something
shape. There's definitely a shape behind it.
There's
something there, and it's it's pretty cool.
That's exactly across from where we were. So this guy, I could have probably threw a baseball at this guy, and he must have just uploaded it, and then someone else found it and put it on this residence page, and she sent it to me. It was like, I can't believe this. It's exactly. Did you
tell your buddy Gavin?
I don't even remember if I still talked to him after that.
Uh-huh.
I haven't talked to him in years, but I don't even know. I remember showing everyone else, be like, remember what I said? Remember what the fuck I said? And then I have this video. And I had I wish I had. I probably do at my parents' house. It's like sketches and shit of what I saw. I was going mental.
Going mad over it.
Yeah. Tinfoil hat it around the room.
It must feel pretty good to have like documented evidence of what you saw, whether it's real or not. Like you saw that. Yeah. And just think about people like 200 years ago when they're trying to describe things like that, and just, basically being accused of being a heretic, like outcast from like society. You have actual video proof evidence of what you're describing to people, and someone filmed it. It's got to be kind of like a weight off your shoulder, and pretty liberating too.
It was. I remember it was like the best feeling to see that video. Just to see the link of the video. But then when I saw it blow up, and I don't remember. I read through the comments like a year or two ago, and it was like I don't remember if people were saying they saw it all of a sudden or something. But that's what worried me, is like all these people that might fake that they've seen the same thing as us,
and
just because it's a video now.
Obviously they did and they do, but you saw what you saw. I mean, that's just fact.
Yeah, and I have I don't know. It made me not doubt my sanity, It was something that backed it up finally, and it's video proof of the exact same. it couldn't have been better, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I've never experienced anything like that in my whole life. I've never even thought about that being something I was going to see.
Right. Yeah, I've only, probably twice in my life where I can truly say I saw an unidentified flying object, whether, it was some sort of spacecraft or whatever, I can distinctly remember, and one of them was very close to where I was, and we were on a section of woods hiking, and camping for like 2 or 3 days, me and some guys, and sitting on a ledge during the dark, maybe 9 or 10 in the evening, and same, almost something similar to that with a triangular type of light pattern.
So weird.
And it got very close to where we were sitting, where I could make out the shape perfectly and see these lights perfectly, and almost seemed to have just disappeared in a blink of an eye.
It darted off, or it was just like before you could even
just gone,
Wow.
So fast that it was gone, and no one had a word to say about it for like 2 or 3 minutes. Everyone just sat there.
Yeah, that's the same thing with us. We just, because what do you say?
Everyone, I felt like, was almost like communicating mentally instead of using their mouths, because it was beyond words.
Yeah, what are you gonna say? Do you see that?
Yeah, because everyone I was with saw it.
Us.
We all sat there and witnessed it, and we witnessed it come very close, and then we all witnessed it disappear. And
wow,
there's nothing like that feeling of unexplained, especially when you're not alone. So it gives you that much more credibility.
And that's what I was excited about. I was like, I like when this shit, happened to me. I was like, oh, I have someone else to back me up. And he's like, oh no. I think I did bring it back up to him, and he saw that like lantern comments. He's like, see, that's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Lanterns. I don't know. I'm not even gonna go into that.
And it's a big difference too when you're seeing something in real time as opposed to like someone videoing.
Yeah.
Something.
100%.
Your eyes capture way more things than an actual like cell phone video.
Exactly.
Recording. There's so much more to that, especially in the nighttime sky.
Yeah, my eyes adjusted, and I finally was able to see the darker shape behind it.
Yeah. That's pretty fucking ominous too, like, and scary when you see like a massive structure in the sky, like dark, like thing like that.
It's not right, and
it's like dreadful.
Yeah, it was, and especially for some reason that it wasn't making noise. There was no hum to it. There was no like loud motors. That's what freaked me out. I don't know why. It was like
very deafening silence,
like just like a stealth ship. I don't know. That thing was fucked.
Yeah, very cool story though, man. Definitely cool.
Yeah, that's my banger.
Yeah, man. Well, you almost ran the gamut of like everything that with your stories that takes place in this area. You got friends and family and yourself that have all experienced, different phenomenon in the Bridgewater Triangle. It's I'm sure a lot of people that grew up in those areas too knows, whether it's themselves or knows somebody or as a family member who've all experienced something like that too. And that's pretty unique, to have that many people interconnected with different phenomena like that.
Totally, and
that big of a section of the state, I bet everyone knows somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to add to what Peter's saying now, the good friend of ours, Joe, who was part of setting us up.
Yeah.
Tonight he was in the area fishing, I guess 2 days ago. And
the nip.
Ran into a police officer. Had a conversation with him, and the last thing the cop said was, "Whatever you do, don't get lost out here." Which to me,
oh no shit,
yeah,
wow, damn.
Who was that? Who was that, Klaus?
Joe from Battle Ruins.
Oh, no kidding.
But he was close to the swamp then, like
Klaus, when you come visit here, we got to spend a day and go through the woods up there.
Yeah, we will.
That'll be really, really, really nice.
I was worried because I felt like most people told stories about things that have happened to themselves and stuff. And I only had that one that was like directly me. You know, the other one was I walked.
I would say that I would say 3 of them are your friends.
I mean, either way, you grew up there. You experienced a lot of different things, first or secondhand. You know.
Yeah.
It's all part of like the lore of it all, and it's really cool. You know, knowing that you're an inhabitant of the Bridgewater Triangle. You know, and you've got a part of it in you, no matter where you go, wherever you travel.
had to get out of there fast.
You got those stories.
Doesn't matter. It's Bridgewater Triangle's in your DNA, Cam.
Yeah. I can't escape it now.
Well, Cam, thanks so much for talking with us tonight. We had those really cool, interesting talks, man. And you're well beyond your 20 years. You know, I'll tell you that.
Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't butcher anything too bad.
No, it was all very good, man.
And
listeners.
Yeah, for all the listeners out there, check out The Stance, Cam's band.
Thank you. A little plug.
Very cool.
There's always
all right, boys. Well, Stockbury Dark signing off. We'll be we got a lot of new episodes coming up. We just want to add that the first 8 episodes just came out last week. We had a phenomenal response to them all, thousands of downloads. We can't thank everyone enough for supporting us, putting the good word out, reposting all our stuff on social media. It's been a really, really massive response, and we're pretty much delighted that it's taken off in such a way. We're very lucky, and we've got a ton of people coming up that are going to tell some incredible stories. So please listen. This is episode 9. Thanks a lot, guys. We had a great talk tonight, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cam.
Thank you.